things there that could be used.
Yes.
There's just not a center that's opened up, and they just haven't been strategic. They now have 260 high-quality providers, any number of whom could expand into those areas, and they're starting to do that, but 10 years is way too late. So we wanted to start with a full landscape analysis to understand where those deserts are and to begin to strategize how do you make sure that they don't exist. Okay. Yeah?
Now, those pockets, they're poor areas.
Mostly. Yeah, mostly. The take-up rates for low-income families is still very high. 85% of the people who use it are low-income, but there's still these pockets. They also wanted to understand what it would cost to do any number of scenarios. What if you covered just 4-year-olds? What if you did 3 and 4-year-olds? What if you did what's the right sliding scale, right? Because it's subsidized universal, not full universal. Not everyone will get a full tuition assistance. Some families don't need it; they need a little bit of help. And so RAND is about to publish the first report, saying here's what the literature says. In terms of the impact of preschool, what is the best way to implement a high-quality preschool program, and so on and so forth. The second one on the landscape deal will be done in March, and so will the costing out of several scenarios. They'll run probably 4 or 5 scenarios. The other thing that the group wanted was to get a poll on the various funding options. How do you pay for this, and what do voters think? Because there are a lot of leaders who have preferences on what it would be, but we wanted to give them a sense as to what voters would support. And so we, working with Cincinnati Public Schools, looked at a variety of different scenarios. One was a 0.15% increase in the earnings tax, which polled the best at 65% of voters. And we chose to be very conservative with the polling. Sometimes when people get polled, they're given 7 options, and a couple of those are you leaning one way or the other? And those leaners are very unreliable. So we took out the leaners. So we just did 4 boxes: definitely yes, probably no, definitely no. And so the 65% represents the top 2 boxes, no leaners. We asked, and at 0.15, that would generate $25 million a year, which would not only allow you to do universal preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds, but you would be able to provide really significant tuition assistance for both low and middle class families and much higher teacher pay. Much higher teacher pay. At 0.1%, which would produce about $16 or $17 million, 62% of voters said they would support that. A sales tax countywide garnered 51%. A property tax garnered 45%. A combined levy with the school district garnered 39%. A district levy with just the expansion of CPS preschools got about 32%. And then the district wanted us to look at different millages. Like what is the breaking point? Because property taxes are very high in the city and people are very worried about that. And so, but then we asked, I think probably one of the most important questions, which is, if there are 2 initiatives on the ballot, one that provides 2 years of quality preschool for every kid with an earnings tax, and one that supports the school district with new money, which is what they are looking to put in front of voters, would you support one, the other, both, or neither? And the plurality of voters said they would support both. 34% said they support both. Only 26% said they would support neither, and those are the 26% that said they wouldn't support anything. I mean, if you look at the cross tabs. And then if you combine that 34% with the numbers of people who would support the other 2, both are above 50%. So we could pass both, but that would require, us working together, and we're moving in that direction, which is really great, because we want 2016 to be the year of kids, where we make a significant investment in our children and in our schools, so that we can say that every kid gets a great start with 2 years of quality preschool and a great school because we invested in our public school system, which resonates with voters, and hopefully with all of you. So that was another piece of information that this group wanted, with all of that, they have been sorting through, and there are 3 or 4 members of the steering committee from Cincinnati Public, so they're very much part of that discussion, and then there are other additional discussions going on with Cincinnati Public, in particular around if we're successful in passing this, how much of that $25 million would go to Cincinnati Public to help them expand their preschool program. They're looking at expanding to 80 classrooms, adding 80 additional classrooms, which is 80 teachers and 80 paraprofessionals, and some additional supports. And a big chunk of that $25 million would be provided to CPS so that they can expand their preschool program. That was also a flaw of Denver's. Denver created a reimbursement rate for every provider, but every provider has different needs, and so we're approaching it differently, which is the district provides all kinds of additional supports, in part because they take more students with special needs than other providers. And so figuring out what makes the most sense in terms of what the district is reimbursed is something that is being discussed and hopefully will be sorted out within the next month or so. So the challenge with just providing, so here are some numbers for you. There are 9,000 3- and 4-year-olds in the city of Cincinnati. Nearly 80% of those kids live at or below 300% of poverty. I mean, we have one of the highest child poverty rates in the country. Head Start, which is a federally funded program, covers 35% of eligible kids. That only covers 1,700 kids out of the 4,600 who are eligible for Head Start.
Okay. I don't want to interrupt but can you explain that Head Start still exists, and
yeah.
What were the results, and what is it you're trying to do more than Head Start?
Yeah, so totally. So Head Start is a grant that agencies throughout the country receive to provide preschool for kids, not always in a high quality setting, although the Obama administration pursued what they call recompetition. Everyone had to recompete for their Head Start money in order to move all of their centers to quality, because quality makes a big difference in terms of what happens ultimately. And right now, we covered about 1,700 kids through Head Start. 600 of them are at CPS. So that money gets distributed to other agencies. So the Community Action Agency runs some of those programs. Cincinnati Public does. Cincinnati Union Bethel does. And I believe the YMCA UC is the other. They're called delegates. The challenge with Head Start is that it's only half day, so it doesn't work for most working families, and it's not enough money to cover all the kids. So this money would come on top of that. So it would allow the Head Start providers to provide full day and to cover all eligible kids. The second source of income is from the state, and it's the child care voucher. And for those low-income families who are either working or in school, they're eligible for a state voucher. That covers about 2,200 kids. The challenge with that is it's a very unreliable source of funding for providers and for the families, because if you get a pay raise, for example, and you're no longer eligible, you lose your benefit. If you lose your job, you lose your benefit, and your child gets pulled out of preschool. So this would come on top of that. It also has a third challenge to it, which is that it's only reimbursed at a level that would allow a center to afford maintaining a 3-star rated center. There are 5 stars that you can get. So it doesn't really allow you to afford getting to your 4th or 5th star. So this would help to increase the reimbursement rates, fill in the gaps. So if somebody were to lose their state child care voucher, this money would come in. There's also a pretty significant copay that would go away, etc. So the big decisions that this group, in conversations with community councils and through town hall meetings and with providers, is to vet what the right funding mechanism is, what the right governance structure would be, how do you ensure we're investing in quality, and there are a few others, but those are the 3 big ones. And they hope to have a recommendation in early March, which would give us plenty of time to get it on the ballot and to do so in a way that allows us to fully vet their recommendation and fully vet a ballot proposal. And, you know, because it's a presidential year, turnout will be very high, or certainly much higher than it is in other elections. And this could be our chance to make an enormous investment in our children and families, particularly those who are struggling. And you know, we have a lot of low-income families. We have one of the highest child poverty rates, as I said. We also have